the first 6 books of Salvatore's Drizzt Do'Urden series they're freaking awesome books.
I couldn't get into him because I didn't think he was an interesting character.
You couldn't get into the Lord of the Rings.
He had no. Yeah, I know. What am I even doing on this show?
You think Beastmaster is the bomb?
Oh, Beastmaster's awesome, dude.
I knew it.
Beastmaster's great.
His loincloth.
It was awesome.
He had the panther. What was the other animal he had with him?
It was a weasel or something, right?
Yeah, that's right. No, ferrets.
Ferret. Ferret or weasel. It's the same.
That's the same difference. Yeah. So, what was the question?
I don't know. Everybody, we are back with another edition of the Down Roll. I'm Adam. That's Will.Dm, and we're here. It's Monday in this world.
No, it's not.
It's not Monday for us. It's Monday for everybody else watching us.
That's true.
We're playing with time and space here, Will.
Well, I'm a DM.
Time and space doesn't mean as much to us as it does to others because we flitter in and out of it.
Yeah, you do flitter a lot.
I flitter, I float.
It's because you're so goddamn graceful. That's
it. Is. I am a graceful man. So anyway, today we're going to be talking about a different topic, which is probably good because if we talked about the same topic, it would get old pretty fast, I imagine.
Get boring quick.
Yeah. So the topic today is there such a thing as too many player character races?
What?
Like early on, old D&D, how many races were there? 3?
Yeah, correct.
I guessed at that one.
And okay, we'll keep guessing.
Human, elf, and dwarf, right?
No.
Oh.
So close. So I take that I was wrong. There was 4. So you had humans, you had dwarves, you had it was just an elf, just one kind of elf. There wasn't any different kind of elf.
Right.
And hobbits.
Oh, there were hobbits, and then they got sued or something and had to change it.
Yeah, they got a cease and desist order from the estate of Tolkien. Saying,
so it was classic fantasy character races.
They also had the Balrog in there. They had
what is it? What is a Balrog?
A Balrog from
Balrog?
Oh, you don't even know Lord of the Rings either, do you?
I saw the movie.
Yeah. All right. Never mind.
The first time, I had no idea what was going on. I had to take it in smaller chunks, like when it came out on DVD or Blu-ray or whatever it was.
To be honest, when I read it, I read the Lord of the Rings. I think it was 9. I didn't really know what was going on.
I watched The Hobbit, the cartoon, The Hobbit.
Yeah. We're insulting so many people right now.
That was good. So anyway, yeah, no.
I'm a Conan man through and through. Sword and sorcery, baby. All right.
So anyway,
your favorite, Michael who?
Oh, what was his name? Hardcock? Moorcock.
Michael Moorcock.
Yeah. I went straight into porn territory right
You
there
did.
with Hardcock.
You did. And here I am encouraging you to do it again.
That was your fault.
It was totally 100%.
I had no memory of what Moorcock did.
Yeah, he's the author of Elric is what he's most well known for.
Yeah, I didn't remember that. Anyway, we started off with 4. You couldn't play a Balrog, could you?
No, Balrog.
I know. I said it purposely that way that time.
I gotcha. No, you could not. It was just a monster, and they had lots of monsters. like some of the stuff they were like, since we're talking about that, Tolkien actually told them, hey, you can't use elves, you can't use dwarves, you can't use orcs, and they were able to counter back at least on part of it. And it's like, what are you talking about? These things here we can show directly where it's coming out of myth. You can't copyright myth, so fuck you. Yeah. And so they were able to keep some of the stuff in, but
I'm
things
gonna get more cock on your ass. That's what he said.
No, they weren't.
Tolkien's like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? What is he talking about?
Yeah. Well, there you go.
So anyway, do you really need more races to play than just human?
No, you don't.
The end. All right.
Hey, thanks for tuning in, everybody. No, not really. I mean, let's be it like so many things when it comes to role playing or anything in general, for that matter. It really depends on what it is you're looking for, what your taste is. There are some people who really, really dig the plethora of different races.
There are a lot of races now.
Yes.
Are there more races in this edition than in previous ones? It seems like there are.
No, it seems like they are, but the difference between now versus earlier was that they're all kind of, when they first did it, they was more centralized in the player's handbook. Okay, so there was more available to start from just the player's handbook, whereas like by the time second edition rolls around and by the time third edition rolls around, they've really started jam packing a bunch of different races, but they were in different like settings.
True. Is that true?
Well, it is. They were in different settings, or they were in different supplements that you would have to buy and then try.
So they weren't in the they weren't in like the player's handbook, right? Third edition.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. Is in.
That's what I mean. To like start off with, it seemed like there's more crazy races.
There are more available in to start off with in the player's handbook in 5th edition and 4th edition than there was in 3rd.
Yeah, 3rd we just have humans, we have dwarves, we have elves, we have gnomes, we have half elves, half orcs, halflings.
Yes, but now if you were to go into like say for example, the epitome of play whatever the fuck you want D&D, Planescape. Now, Planescape, that's where you originally start. You get tieflings is something that you can play.
Oh, is that where they came from?
Yes, and essentially what
is Planescape just another D&D world, like a Greyhawk or...
What Planescape is, okay, think the best way to look at this is sort of like the DC universe and their multiverse and all these different universes. Sigil in the DC universe is like it's a city, and it's called the City of Doors, and it's a focal point where all the different dimensions come to mingle. Okay, so you get everything from every plane of existence, all these different monsters, humans, everything is in Sigil. And so because of that setting had a just boom a ton. You could play any type of race for the most part.
So it's kind of like Neverwhere in the book Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman.
Yes,
which is basically just a ripoff of that, Hellboy 2.
Is that the one with the elves?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see that one.
You know what? Better second viewing. It wasn't as good as the first, but it was better the second time you watch it, when you have no expectations.
Everything's better when you have no expectations. Yeah. But yeah, I mean...
so why did they come up with all of these other races then? We had a pretty solid lineup of what you would consider the gold standard of fantasy characters, and even a half orc in there if you wanted to be a little on the naughty side. Right.
Well, to tell you the truth, now this is just pure conjecture on my part, but because the fans wanted it.
That's fair. People like to play these crazy characters.
They do, and they recognize it. And I mean, you can definitely tell if you go online and you start looking at, for example, go and check out nearly any stream nowadays, and you're lucky if there's one human in the bunch.
When we play,
other
most of the characters that we've had have been humans. Maybe there's been a half elf, or an elf.
Well, there's a reason for that in like a lot of the stuff that we've been
because we're doing Greyhawk and it's older school.
We do Greyhawk. Humans always had like sort of like a benefit to them that would give them something that would make them be able to. Because all the other races have special abilities connected to them.
And the only thing good originally about humans was you could get further in your class.
Well, that was huge back in the day. That's one of the reasons.
But that it was weird the way they set that up, though. I never understood that.
Well, in OD&D, for example, a hobbit could only be a fighter, and their max was 4th level.
Yeah, which is... I mean, again, I guess they weren't expecting you to live past 1st anyway, so...
Well, and that was their level cap. And then level caps continue on through 2nd, and I'm pretty sure level caps got dumped completely in 3rd. I'm almost positive, but I'm sure if I'm incorrect, somebody will let me know.
I hate level caps. We should talk about that another episode.
Yeah, they should. Well, and that's one of the things about what has happened in the progression and why more people are playing more races. Because more people wanted to play these different races. First TSR and then WotC both recognized this, and so
and when you say WotC, you mean Wizards of the Coast.
Correct. I'm sorry, Wizards of the Coast. They both realized it, and so they really started marching in this direction and making it so that pretty much, well, you can play anything you want because they realized that people wanted to play whatever. The thing is that as the editions progress along, the hindrances that are connected with the other non-human races fall more and more and more to the wayside, to the point that in 5th edition there is none. And their counterbalance to that is, well, hey, if you play this alternate human, we'll give you it's the only race that can start with a feat at 1st level. Which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you get 1 feat and then 2 +1s. And depending on the other races, they've got like at least 5 to half a dozen special deals about them. So, I mean, it's a give and take thing. With there not being any drawbacks, you get more and more people playing other races.
So why would you want to play a human then?
That's why you're seeing what you're starting to see now, where people are playing everything but humans. And the only reason that a lot of people are playing humans now is simply because I really need that feat at 1st level to make my build correct. And
it's all about the build.
It is. That's something we should do an episode about.
So now they've given us all of these races, right? We've got tieflings, we have dragonborn, we have these monstrous races now.
Kobolds, hobgoblins, bugbears, furbolgs,
regular goblins.
Regular goblins, right?
So why shouldn't all the races in these worlds be playable?
Well, again, it's going to come down to the type of story that you're looking to play. And I'll use an example. Now, when Forgotten Realms was first published and first starting to come about, it was very similar, not as hardcore as, say, like Greyhawk was when it comes to separation of the races, but it was very similar in the fact that this is your Elven Kingdom, this is that, this is so forth. And again, as that progressed along, you've gotten to what it is basically now in 5th. And while you can still play that in the 5th edition, the majority of the people who are coming in, the new people, I should say, the newest generation of role players, and the generation of role players that pretty much started cutting their teeth in 3rd edition and what have you. They're coming in, and the world is very homogenized, and it is very copacetic. Everybody kind of like gets along. If you don't get along, it's just a snide comment, and then that's pretty much the end of it. Which is fine if that's the type of world that you enjoy and would like to do. I personally think you lose so much when you do that from what gives you great role-playing opportunities.
And I agree. And then if you have all of these, like if somebody's playing, I'll use a dragon. Now, first of all, obviously that's going to be a way overpowered race, but
Right.
it's also there's no way for you to hang out at the tavern.
No,
right.
And actually, it was in second edition. I think it was second edition. There's a whole box set that allowed you to. The game was all based around players playing dragons. But that was more like a supplement. It wasn't something that was supposed to be interjected.
It's not going to be mixed in with your halflings and your gnomes.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to be. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
So now, is there such a thing? So we've got all these races we can play. Is there such a thing as playing the race wrong?
Now, see, this is where it's going to start to get into. This is where you're going to start blurring the lines because of when you have everybody living together in harmony. Sure, you can have that, but now you're starting to get to the point. Well, what makes the different races different? What makes them unique? Asides the fact that, well, this guy's got horns, this guy doesn't, this guy can do that, this guy doesn't. So that's just nothing more than, if you think about it, when you break it down, characters, when you build them, you can build them to have special abilities. So it's turned from a race, which is sort of like an identifier, into something that has become just another piece of the puzzle for getting you the different types of powers that you want. Now, there's a lot of people, and they'll probably blow back on this part of it, and because diversity is a big thing, which I completely agree that the more diverse you have of something, the better. But at the same time, you have to be mindful of the things that make good role playing. And just because the role playing world in which you're playing might reflect certain things in the real world doesn't mean that that's what is reflected amongst the players. You want as many different types of people that are around the table, but with the characters, like in Greyhawk, in the original Greyhawk, and basically the way I run Greyhawk, although Greyhawk was beginning to get pasteurized as well, but I think what ended up happening was that it was able to survive with less done to it because it was dropped as a feature or a focal. So, like, if Greyhawk had remained the main world of which Wizards of the Coast continued to build their product lines on, it would be just like Forgotten Realms.
You'd see bugbears marrying hobbits.
Right, but it like playing a half orc in earlier editions was a big deal in the fact that most places, and if you were in Greyhawk, most places don't like half orcs.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to get a ton of shit wherever you go. While we, as in the real world, in the real society, that might suck ass, and nobody really wants that. You have to understand, role playing is just like fiction. The good stuff comes out of the rub. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have that, then you lose some of your role playing.
And I think a lot of the times the players and the DMs play these different races too casually.
Yes, because they're all the same.
Like, and especially, I mean, and you could make an argument with like a Dragonborn, especially if you're playing in like a big city, location or something like that, where you're bound to see different types of races and stuff like that.
Right.
But it's probably not that commonplace to see a goblin or a hobgoblin or whatever, bugbear, whatever else you can play. These monstrous races, like even in like a tavern.
Yeah.
Like if a bugbear walks into a tavern, there's probably going to be at least some stares, if not an altercation.
Yes,
and we just sort of and to me it kind of loses the value of playing, and maybe this is why I tend to stick to humans and half elves, because there's no real difference in the way people are playing these different races.
You're correct.
How the DM is treating them, for that matter. The benefit of playing a Dragonborn or a Tiefling or any of these other races that I don't play would be being an outsider. and having to face the things that an outsider faces, and even in a big city. I mean, I live in in New York,
right?
Just because you have any different type of person you can imagine here in New York doesn't mean that everybody gets along, and they like each other. I mean, just watch Do the Right Thing if you don't believe me. Great movie, by the way, one of the best ever made. But that's similar, when you have people living together, even, there may be this tenuous relationship or this partnership, and at any point, because of those tensions, something could blow. And I think that if you don't add that in, both as a player and as a DM, when you have these races, what's the point? Something. You might as well just have a bunch of humans.
Yeah, and you lose something with it. Now, to be fair, to TSR, and to be fair to Wizards of the Coast, they give this good material to go along with the races to the DMs and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'll show you an example. I think I've got it right. Right here.
I just so happen to have it directly behind me.
In 5th edition, we've got Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. Now, if you go through this thing, one of the things they're doing for you here is they're giving you all kinds of different information about their society, how they act, how they should interact with other people, what they do, who their primo enemies are, and things along these lines. But with all this good information, it comes down to the DM implementing it. Mm-hmm. And I think what happens is that because this information's here, it's a limitation to the role-playing ability, and when the limitation isn't hardwired into
hard-cocked, as it were,
yes, like Mr. Moorcock is, when it's not hardwired into the rules itself and left up to people to choose how they're going to do that, it always goes by the wayside.
Right.
And then you have. Now, people will say, well, if that's the way you like to play, great. And I agree. I 100% agree.
If you're only playing for like the strategy part of it, you like, you want to have advantages in battles or whatever the scenario
the role
is.
Players. Because like if you go on, to these streaming shows and you watch the bulk of these streaming shows where the entire cast is all a different race, okay, there's not an awful lot of any kind of role playing about what is unique about your race.
Right. I'm even gonna throw Critical Role under the bus because they did this with their second season, and it started off a little bit, but again, they're in an area, I guess, where and I don't remember a lot of it, but they're in an area where you see a lot of these monstrous races. But even as they, as they progressed on. And they're in this area where there's just, it's all monstrous races.
Yes.
In the very beginning, there were some issues with the human characters that then disappeared.
Exactly. Yep.
It was because it's
for this long.
And that to me was more interesting because it was a reverse of, of what you typically see, which are these monstrous races in a predominantly human or elven, dwarven world.
Yes. And I think the problem with that is granted, now again, I can't emphasize it enough because everybody, when you say one thing, they take it as that is your line in the sand, and you never, that's it. You can never change it. It's like no, these people who are going and then it being introduced to all this stuff, they're like, this is my opinion. Now, Matt Mercer, he's spectacular dungeon master, but he's also DMing a business.
Right.
People really need to remember this part of it.
But that's why I think it's disappointing that they lost that piece of it.
Well, the reason that they lost it, in my opinion, is because they don't want to alienate or seem exclusive in any way, because there's such a blowback with because there's some hot topic words, and like diversity in role playing, that's a hot topic. And if there's not diversity within the game, then they automatically take that and boil that over into the real world, it's like,
and I understand that a lot of people do this, but to me, again, you're playing a fantasy world.
Exactly.
Overcoming those obstacles to be, and take it for what it's worth, would be, ideally part of that fantasy. Or don't play those characters. You can play, a character who's gay, for example. That's a human, or or whatever the scenario is. I just think that, to me, that's and maybe it's more from a storytelling perspective than anything else. From a storytelling perspective, I think it's more interesting.
Yes.
As a player, as a DM, as somebody watching a stream or whatever, or a TV show or a movie for that matter.
I agree 100%.
It's more interesting when because without conflict, there's no story. You're just going through, you might as well be playing, Connect 4.
Yeah. And this is one of the things I think that, again, I applaud the ideals.
Absolutely.
I feel that it's a shame that more people can't disassociate what they're doing in a game versus what they're doing, in the real world. That this is
and I'm probably one of those people that don't, which is why I usually play humans.
Right. Well, and here's one of the things. This is the deal with it, is that because if you take every one of your any type of media that you dig on, that you think is done extremely well, there is that in there. That's why, if you watch a live stream or something like that, and and it's like, oh, that's so good, but it's not as good as this fantasy book I read. I enjoy the hell out of playing it, but it's never as deep as the media you consume about the stuff. A good example is, if you want to see something about what I'm talking about and how it's done in a way, is if you go and you dig into the Witcher stuff. Okay, the Witcher books, the Witcher.
Which I haven't even been able to get through the games. I still have a backlog.
Which is fine. You don't have to.
I want to play them.
Yeah.
It takes too much time. I don't have the time that I used to.
You see, what we have there is you have more of a European sense in the design, and they have this.
So everyone's wearing berets and smoking cigarettes like.
No, that's just the French version.
Oh,
no, but the thing it is like there is built into that there's like how the dwarves in that world interact with everybody else, how the elves interact with everybody else, how the humans interact with the other races. And this is the thing that I love about that, is how the humans interact with all the other humans.
And that's what I think. I mean, talking about video games, I think that the Dragon Age games did a great job with that. At least the first two. I haven't played the third one because, again, I've run out of time.
Right.
But the first two, I thought, did a really good job with that. And again, to me, that makes it an interesting story. Otherwise, you might as well all play humans. To go back to our first questions, why not play a human? So let me ask you a question. Should players be allowed to make their own races?
Yes, 100%. I do believe so. I'm down in it. And this is why.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay. Now, I just was railing against, two races, and say, granted, my personal opinion as far as how I like the role play. But if a character designs their own race, they are way more invested in that character as a separate race. So all those things we were talking about as far as...
But they're probably going to be overpowered.
Well, that's where the DM comes in and goes, okay, we're going to change this. Yeah, you can't have that. Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, the player goes home pouting.
Right. But you don't do that too often. That's why you only play humans.
I play humans.
Yeah, because
I play a lot of other races.
I won't let you play all the made-up races you want. That's what I'm going to tell the audience.
I have no interest in making up my own race.
But the thing is that people will buy into it. Okay, they will 100% more buy into it because they are invested, because they have created this race. And to tell you the truth, I would be.
So you've been lying to me up until now.
Yes, pretty much.
Okay.
I would be more inclined to have a fantasy world, or I should say a fantasy game where in the world, if you wanted to play a different race, you had to make it. And then that was the requirement for playing another race. You had to make it. So basically, we could strip the world down, say there are no other races until a player character makes that race. There's monster races.
It's kind of like how people made these designer dogs.
Actually, you can spot on about that. But that's the thing. It's like, so I'm 100% behind players making their own races.
What are our favorite races to play?
Well, you got to go first.
I've already said I like playing humans. Humans, half-elves, maybe an elf.
Humans and half-elves. Okay.
Yeah.
My favorite races are humans, but right there, neck and neck with humans, halflings.
You know what? I have and maybe I'm a heightist. I played one dwarf for a little while, as you know.
Yes.
I don't know. There's something about playing, like, maybe this is my issue with Lord of the Rings, and it was the same issue with like Harry Potter.
It's
like
the height.
It's the height. Like they all look like little kids, and like and probably, and again, when you look at Lord of the Rings, my biggest issue, especially with the first movie, and I didn't read the books,
Right.
but all they do is run away from everything.
Yeah,
it's 2.5 hours of people running from stuff, and probably because they're too small to be out there on their own.
And I'm going to quote something. I know you don't like his stuff. Kevin Smith, he's got in Clerks 2, we was talking where he's going back and forth. The one guy's talking about that the Star Wars is the better trilogy, and the other one's arguing back about now he's talking original Stars, mind you. Mm-hmm. And the other one's arguing about how the Lord of the Rings trilogy is better. And he says, that whole movie was just people walking. I mean, for crying out loud, the trees even walked in the damn thing.
That's all it was. So anyway, I don't know. I've never really gotten into playing one of the shorter races, like a gnome.
I kind
of liked playing a dwarf when I played it.
Yeah, I like halflings because I like the underdogs, and halflings pretty much are considered to be the underdogs. Nobody takes them seriously, at least normally in the normal settings. Like, there you go. There's a good example right there of something that I was talking about. It's how the other races in the Lord of the Rings view the halflings.
Right.
Nobody looks at the halflings. Gandalf does, and there's a very few people out there that like, hey, these halflings, they got something special about them. There's something, they might be small and diminutive, but they've got a lot of gumption.
And maybe that's why I like the Hobbit better, because everybody was short.
So it was all the same.
Doesn't.
Yeah.
Perspective wise and everything seems, except there was one just tall, hairy dude. That was.
Yeah. There you go, and that's acceptable.
Yeah. The Kramer of the group. Gandalf is the Kramer of the group. That's what I'm comparing Gandalf to.
I would love to. You know what? If I were to play a wizard again, now that you mention that, I think that's how I would play him. It would totally be a Kramer. I could see that. That would be cool.
All right. Well, anyway, tell us what you think about all these crazy races. Do you like them? Do you love them? Do you hate them? Do you not care one way or the other?
I would say that's the majority.
Just come up with an opinion, man.
Stand up.
Life's too short. Anyway, also talk about what is your favorite race to play. Maybe you've been doing that in the chat all along. We don't know because we're not reading it. Because we're not there in that same time and place as you are. Because we're masters of time.
And space.
This is live in a different place and time.
It's different way of looking at it.
We're living in a different world, baby. Anyway, for Will.Dm, I'm Adam. This has been The Down Roll. Check us out Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Daylight Time. I never know which is which. For Greyhawk Adventures, The Ghost of Saltmarsh. And Wednesday night, same time, 9 p.m. Eastern, for Tales of a Savage Land, a Savage Worlds role-playing system game. And Will's frozen. So we're going to head out on that note. Good night, everybody. Sleep tight.